Right, so UFC 254 went down last night, and Khabib just dominated. He destroyed, he dismantled Justin Gaethje, and then he went ahead and announced his retirement from the sport of mixed martial arts. And all right, let's just look at the fight to start with. Let's talk about the fight. So I think going into the fight, the general consensus was that the outcome of the fight hinged on a couple of factors. How is Khabib going to deal with Justin Gaethje's stand-up? Is he going to be able to deal with the power? Is he going to be able to deal with the variety of strikes that Gaethje is able to produce? Is he able to deal with the movement that Justin Gaethje displayed in his fight against Tony Ferguson? And on the other hand, is Justin Gaethje going to be able to stop Khabib from taking him down? If he does get taken down, how quickly can he get up, and how much can he limit the damage that Khabib is able to inflict when they are on the ground? And I think all of those questions I've just listed were emphatically answered by Khabib. Now, I'm not going to go through this fight blow for blow, kind of minute by minute, because if you're watching this, you've seen the fight clearly. So I just want to give you a few observations about the fight that I noticed. So I think the fight started off quite slowly. There was a feeling out process. Both guys were just kind of getting used to the movement of each other. And I think about 2 minutes in, a minute and a half into the fight, I think it exploded. And the reason I think it exploded is Gaethje landed a couple of very, very powerful low kicks. And you could see the redness starting to appear on Khabib's leg. And at that point, I thought to myself, Khabib can't just eat up these kicks all night. Like, if we get to the third, fourth, fifth round, Khabib's gonna be struggling. Like you saw in that first round a couple of times, Khabib physically getting knocked off balance with the power of those kicks. I think even on one occasion, his whole body just kind of swung around with the power of the kick. And I thought to myself, if he just keeps eating those kicks, then there'll come a point in the fight where his movement is going to be compromised because of the damage inflicted by those kicks. And if his movement's compromised, his ability to take Justin Gaethje down will be limited. And if that happens, there's only one winner on the feet. So I just anticipated Khabib to just start shooting for takedowns and start grinding on Gaethje and trying to make him tired and make this a war of attrition and just drag Gaethje down into deep waters and just kind of grind out a victory effectively. The way he chose to deal with those leg kicks came as a bit of a surprise to me, because he chose to deal with those leg kicks by applying more pressure, by marching forward quicker, by closing the distance quicker, but remaining on the feet. And it turned into a bit of a weird kind of striking battle, which I wasn't expecting, because that wasn't part of the script. Like, that isn't what Khabib is supposed to be doing, but he did it, and he did it to good effect. Because what we actually saw was Gaethje on the back foot, Gaethje on his bike, and Gaethje even landed a couple of big punches in that first round, but they didn't have the effect that we're used to seeing Gaethje have with his power shots, because he was on his back foot. Like, when he usually lands those big punches, he's on the front foot, so he's able to get all of his weight behind them, so they have more of an effect on the opponent. He landed them on Khabib on the back foot, and Khabib was able to just eat them up. But look, let's not forget, Khabib's got a very, very, very good chin. And I think if Gaethje landed those same strikes against a different opponent, that opponent would think twice about trying to close the distance. He'd know he got hit. Khabib knew he got hit. He just didn't show it. And then I think the most kind of pivotal moment in the fight happened. With about 30 or 40 seconds left in the first round, Khabib took Gaethje down. He took Gaethje down. That wasn't the most pivotal moment. It was what happened once he was taken down, because he very, very, very surprisingly easily managed to get into mount, and then he got into a position to start working the armbar. And I think if there was another minute left in that round, the fight would have been over in the first round. But Gaethje got saved by the bell, and it was time for round two. And during that gap between the first and the second round, I was sitting there thinking to myself, what have I watched? Like, nobody anticipated the fight to play out the way it has. And with what I just seen, I literally couldn't see a way that Gaethje is going to win this fight. And just as I was thinking that, the second round started. Again, they got involved in a striking exchange. Gaethje threw a low kick, which Khabib caught. And that was it. Khabib took Gaethje down. And before you knew it, he had got the submission, triangle choke. 1 minute 34 into the second round. Now, what are my observations about this particular fight? Firstly, from Gaethje's point of view, like, so much was said about Gaethje's ability as a wrestler, how good he is at wrestling. He's a D1 wrestler. And one of the things that I mentioned during the preview video I did is, like, yeah, fair enough, he was a good college wrestler, but college wrestling was 10 years ago. Like, he works on his takedown defense, I'm sure, because he's good at it. But, like, being a good college wrestler 10 years ago, how does that equate to what Khabib does now in this modern day in mixed martial arts? And I think we saw the answer to that. Justin Gaethje didn't have an answer for Khabib's ability to take him down and just manipulate him once they were on the ground. I was surprised at how, or just the lack of resistance Gaethje had when Khabib did take him down. Like, he just wasn't able to create a situation where there's a scramble or anything. Like, literally, like, Khabib was just able to have his way with Gaethje. And we all know, if one man can take you down, two can rape you. And those are Gaethje's words, not mine. Now, from Khabib's point of view, he's literally far and away ahead of the rest of the pack. There's not a lightweight in the UFC that you can sit here and say has a chance of beating Khabib in a mixed martial arts fight. And not just in the UFC, like in the world. Like, I don't think there's a single lightweight around that stands a chance with Khabib in the cage. I think you can comfortably say he's the greatest lightweight of all time. But one thing that I was thinking about is, I can't think of a single fighter on the entire roster that has the skills or the attributes where I could say a fighter like that can beat Khabib. A fighter like that would beat Khabib. So I suppose what I'm saying is, pound for pound, in my opinion, Khabib is the best fighter in the UFC. But I need to be careful with the word "is", because this comes on to the next bit of the video. As soon as the fight finished, you saw that explosion of emotion from Khabib, and he was on the canvas and he was kind of on his knees with his hands in his head, and you could see he was, he was crying, and he was very, he had a lot of emotion. He just kind of just let it all out. And his team kind of rallied around him and kind of helped him back to his feet and were helping him stop crying. And at that point, I just noticed he was just fixated on getting his gloves off. And as he was doing that, it just dawned on me, there's a reason why he wants to take his gloves off. I think this is it. And yep, as soon as he got on the mic, he announced that this is it for him. He's retiring. And that's it. That's all she wrote for Khabib and his career. And, like, you talk about fighters retiring on the top, but I can't think of a single fighter that has retired at the pinnacle that Khabib reached with that performance. Do you know what I mean? Like, this guy, Justin Gaethje, was supposed to be the biggest test for Khabib, the biggest test that Khabib's ever had. On paper, this is the guy that has all of the skills, all the attributes that will cause someone like Khabib all sorts of trouble. And nothing. Literally nothing. Like, it was this, with every title defense that Khabib has had, he's just looked more and more dominant. The Conor fight, and then the Dustin Poirier fight, and then now this. Like, every single fight, as he seems to progress as a champion, he just gets more and more dominant. And for me, this is the best performance I've ever seen Khabib give in a UFC octagon. And it just so happens to be his last. So if you're talking about retiring on the top, I can't think of anybody in mixed martial arts or boxing that has done it better than Khabib. There isn't anyone that has retired on this much of a high, the way Khabib has. Now, is this retirement real? For me, yes. And hindsight obviously is 2020. It's a wonderful thing. But I think, looking back, I watched the interview that he did with Brett Okamoto during fight week. I think he did it, you know, maybe the week before this week. I don't know when he did it, but it's very recent. And the way Brett was asking Khabib about retirement and who he wants for his 30th opponent if he comes through Gaethje, and, you know, things like that. The way Khabib was talking about when he retires, he's going to be free and he's going to be able to be the eagle, because he'll be able to go and do whatever he wants whenever he wants. And as he was saying that conversation is the first thing I thought of when Khabib announced his retirement. Because when he was like, Khabib is a very serious person, you know, you don't really get much kind of emotion from him in terms of, you know, just laughy, jokey, kind of jovial kind of a personality from him when he does media obligations and stuff like that. But when he was talking about retiring, that was the most kind of, I wouldn't say happiest, but it just felt like that part of the interview was where he kind of exposed himself the most in terms of what he's feeling inside. The rest of the stuff was very kind of straight-faced and whatnot, just talking mixed martial arts and the fight game, etc. And during that same speech, like, he's right. Like, the next two guys in line are Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor, and he's choked both of them out. Like, the only person left in that UFC top 10, you can argue, is Tony Ferguson. But with the way Tony Ferguson lost to Gaethje, I mean, I don't think anybody is going to sit here and say, oh, he's the guy that could have beaten Khabib, and Khabib should have fought him before he retired. Do you know what I mean? Like, I given the performance that he put in against Gaethje, I think everybody can comfortably kind of surmise that if Tony Ferguson fought Khabib, then there'd only really be one winner. What a fighter, man. It literally once in a lifetime. Like, you don't get fighters like this very often. You don't get people that are this dominant. And obviously, like John Jones had a period in his career when he was very dominant, similar to how Khabib was last night. And, you know, in the more later stages of his career at 205 pounds, John Jones has been less dominant. And maybe if Khabib continued on, there'd be a time where Khabib would be less dominant. But for what he's done and how he's done it and where he's left the game, there's literally nobody out there that you can compare to Khabib and the way he's managed his career. And he's always maintained that his motivation, the driving force behind him, isn't money, it's not fame. It's for him to just prove that he's the best. And last night, he emphatically proved that he's the best. And that throughout the theme throughout his career was, I want to prove that I'm the best. And he's done it. He reached his goal as to become the lightweight champion in the UFC, and he achieved his goal to prove that he's the best, the most dominant champion that we've ever seen in the UFC. Like, if you've achieved your goals, you don't feel like you've got anything to prove to yourself or anybody else. If you feel like you've done what you need to do as a fighter and there's nothing left on the table for you, then it's time to go. And he's gone. The king is dead. Long live the king. Let me know what you guys think, man. Let me know what you think about what I've just said in this video. Let me know what you guys think about Khabib, what you think about some of the points I've made, whether you agree or disagree. Put your comments below. Don't be scared to like this video. Share it with a friend if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'll catch you guys next time.